if we're rolling machines around on a floor that's not spotless, the machine is rolling across dust particles that make the machine move to a certain extent. It transfers to the head. It makes marks in the floor. If you get sawdust, especially if you get extra sawdust stuck on the wheels, you hear people say, "Oh, well, clean your wheels and it'll fix those big waves." You should have had them spotless before you ever got started and kept them spotless.
Hey, welcome to All Things Wood Floor. This episode, my guest, Kent Rogerson and Jamie Lambert of Low Country Hardwood Floors. They're out of Pawleys Island, South Carolina. We had both of them on with wood flooring legend Sprig Lynn of Universal Floors when we talked about the Mellon Auditorium in Washington, D.C. When it comes to sanding and finishing, these guys are top gun. Best of the best. You can see their work online in Wood Floor Business. Check out their photos. They are amazing. These guys love to do what they do, and so do their clients and colleagues. I'm Steve Diggins. Welcome to All Things Wood Floor. Here are Kent Rogerson and Jamie Lambert, wood floor pros around the world. Let's get to it. All right, Kent Rogerson and Jamie Lambert, welcome to All Things Wood Floor for the second time.
What's happening? How you doing?
Hey, boys.
Yes,
Hey, you know what? I did. Listen, I was going to jump into all my question stuff, but before we do, preempt all that. I just jumped online and was looking at the work that I think you just posted on Facebook. Go over that with me because that floored me. That's amazing. You're making radius, not just one, but multiple radius with solid oak. And I swear it looked like one piece and they've got 90-degree bends in them. You want to explain that to me?
Yeah, well, we actually have a job that about 7 or 8 years ago, we quoted this job. It's about 6,000 feet of wood in the house, 3 flights of somewhat of an elliptical staircase. And we lost the job. We were, if I remember correctly, the builder told us we were 15% on the high side, so we lost the job. And 2 years after taking ownership of the house, the homeowners called us up there, and the floors were wide plank on the ocean front, tar paper and cleat nails for installation, and it had done what anybody would expect it to do. It's cupped and buckled and done all kinds of crazy stuff. So the homeowner was like, I wish I would have known and wasn't just dealing with my builder. I wish I'd have had taken the time to get somewhat of an education from you, because I would have easily spent the extra money, because I am disgusted with this. I'm thinking about moving all of my stuff out and replacing my floors. Well, at the time we were super booked, and she was wanting to do it before summer. It's a vacation house for them. And we weren't able to get it in before the summer. So she finally says, I'm going to wait a couple of years, enjoy the house a little bit. We cut some humps down and screwed the floor back down so they wouldn't trip. And they did just that. They enjoyed it for a couple of years and kind of decided that we're going to move out. We want all the floors ripped out of the house. The staircases that were put in the house were made by a Carolina Southeast, staircase company. And the selections of wood that they used to make all the radius nosing, they did it in block on a CNC machine. And the colors were way off, so the blocks were extremely obvious. She couldn't stand it. She says, I feel like I'm looking at Legos across here. So as we're talking, she said, in a perfect world, how would you have done this? Also, we would have gone and hand selected some rift and quartered material and cut it up in small slices and made templates and bent all this stuff in and made it look like a flowing piece all the way around all these staircases. And so anyway, she kind of, I guess, chewed on the thoughts and ideas for a season. Next year, she calls me back and says, okay, we're ready to move everything out of here, give you guys the house for a year, a season, an off season. And they ended up replacing all the moldings, doors, staircases, handrailings, cabinets, everything. Floors, tile. They had movement in the house. So they had some cracked tile. So ended up being a new house that they spent, I don't know, they're $1.25 million in now on a remodel of a new house, which to me is just unbelievable. Just a few little details on the way in proactively. They could have spent 15% more on 3 or 4 line items in the house and had been in love with the house for the next 25 or 30 years. Instead, the 15% that got quote unquote saved on the way in cost them, $1.25 million just a few years down the road. Anyway, so that's how we got into that. So we pulled all the nosings and step treads and floors out of the house. We have reinstalled a 3/4 inch thick engineered floor that we had, custom made to the grade that she wanted. 9-inch wide, 12-foot long boards. And, but then we just made all the templates and we bent all that stuff here at the shop. One of the things that we do is just really index the grains very carefully so that when you do the bend and the radius changes, the rays look like they naturally flare out. Even though they don't perfectly line up, it still looks very natural, and takes a lot of wood and grain selection. And then we use they're table saw blades, but they're table saw blades that have a little less than 1/16 of an inch of a kerf in them.
Thin kerf.
So it's almost like you're cutting them with a water jet. So you don't have that wide kerf of material missing. So as we bend them in, it looks almost like Goliath grabbed it and bent it.
Well, you're ripping these, right? So I got a question. I used to sell saw blades. Because of the thin kerf, do you have to put a blade stabilizer? Because isn't it going to wobble around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's got blade
stabilizer. Do me a favor,
for
the people listening that don't know what this is about, explain this. I don't think people know. Some people think you take a bunch of pieces of wood and you bend it or you steam it. No, tell them exactly how do you take wood and make it bend around a hearth like you're talking about?
So if it is a steep enough curve, we do steam them. Okay. So this was probably 20% away from having to be steamed. Okay. We cut the slices, so in a 5.5 inch wide nosing, it's 24 pieces that we cut it into, right? So there's a lot of pieces, so they'll bend in there well. And because the kerf is so small, you're not losing the sawdust you use with a normal table saw pass. And then those stabilizers that you were alluding to are like for somebody that's trying to imagine it, if a saw blade was so thin that it could just wobble if it caught the grain wrong, you're adding these big, they look almost like washers kind of
giant,
on each side.
Heavy washers.
So that the blade is thicker all the way out to where the thickness of your wood's going to start. So you couldn't cut through a 3-inch board with this saw blade. It wouldn't work. About a dressed 5/4, so maybe 1 inch and 3/8 is about as thick as you could possibly cut with it.
Gotcha.
But before it would hit your spacers.
I've done it with a bandsaw. If you can't use a kerfed blade, you got to use it. Because the kerf on a rip has to be a wide chisel tooth, which makes it even trickier because you can't just use an alternate top or triple chip for that. It's got to be a flat top. So that's perfect sense. You're cutting strips, right?
So by the way, you continue to impress me.
No doubt.
So you talk about these details, right?
You know where this comes from? When you build a Bowback Windsor chair, and you make those nice curves, you make tons of strips about in the shape of 1 inch. You glue them all, bend them around the frame, and you make them extra long, and then you wait till they're dry, and now you've got a curved piece that looks like, but this is the amazing thing that you guys did. How do you, when you do that, make it look like a piece of wood after and not a whole bunch of little strips?
Well, the biggest thing is, a couple things. Grain selection. I went and picked through 1,000 board feet of lumber up in the mountain. I drove 4 hours away to hand select. I needed 10 pieces of 9-inch wide edge grain, rift and quarter material, and I selected through more than 1,000 board feet. It's probably 1,500 board feet of lumber. Thank God I had a mill that would let me do that. I spent 4 hours just selecting boards because I wanted to take ones that were very tight grain, and cut those up into my strips with my very fine blade. But then there's a straight section in between the two, so I picked ridiculously tight grain stuff for that. So where the newel post lands is where our joint's going to be. It looks identical. If you look at the two, what we cut up in the regular rift and quarter that's just extra dense, they look the same. You really have to.
And I'm going to interrupt you for a couple of times because we weren't going to go down this rabbit hole. When we do this, when you air the All Things Wood Floor podcast, can you between now and then get some of those photos to Wood Floor Business Magazine, so while people listen, they can see them. It's on the Low Country Hardwood Floors Facebook page, but let's put them on Wood Floor Business Magazine. This is really something really interesting for people to see, especially new people, when they look at a hearth and somebody says, please make this a radius or a circle, and they say, I have no idea how to do this. So how did you finally wrap all that up, and we'll get into the regular stuff?
So we've actually still got two more pieces to make. It's one of those things that patience pays off. So we glue them up and we let them sit for a solid 36 hours in the template, still clamped up. Let the wood, not only let the glue dry well, but let the wood find its memory and kind of chill out, so we don't get any spring back. You can pull them out when the glue's dry in 8 or 10 hours, but you end up with a little more spring back.
Yes.
And then you're at the job site trying to install them, and they don't fit.
You get that tension memory. It's like a bow. Yeah.
Right. It's one of those things. The way you just talked about the blades and even understanding that, the other day, you and I had a quick phone call as I was driving home, and I was making a comment about the posts on Facebook, and I said, everything can be done better. People have been bending wood. My father taught me how to bend wood in the early 80s. Before that, the late 70s, he was teaching me how to bend wood in his mill workshop. But I brought my dad in here today, who is a master woodworker, and told him, I said, I want you to look at these nosings. And my father's standing over him at 83 years old looking at it and go, wow. So a man that's bent more wood than any hardwood floor guy that I know, with spiral staircases and all this kind of stuff, he literally looked at it and took not a double take, a quadruple take, and was like, okay, tell me how you did it,
Well, I know what. I think I know what. I got a newsletter. I got a podcast. I wouldn't have gone here, but you said before we got on the call to jump on and look, and I'm like, these are amazing. They look absolutely amazing. It's like a luthier made them. It was like somebody building a fine piece of musical equipment. So I was really fascinated. You know why I brought it up too? It's more impromptu. It's because when we start to talk a little bit more about what you're doing, this shows people, when we're going to discuss the range of what people are capable of doing as a hardwood flooring pro, you guys have a lot of little things you do at another level. Like you mentioned, my background comes from woodworking and industrial equipment and selling machinery and working with machinery. Then it became flooring. Then it became guitar building is how this started. And then this. So when wood people get together, there's this wood science that we all share, and you can't work with wood if you don't know the blade, the kerf, the tool, the negative rake, the angle of the blade. I see people burning up a blade and they're forcing it. I'm like, you don't put a triple chip in a rip saw, and you don't put a flat top on a miter box. So what you guys are talking about is fascinating stuff to me.
I mean, I grew up in a mill workshop running winding molders and building heads for Madison lathes and whatnot. If you don't know the speed you're going to run the material at, what material it is. We're going to use different angles of knife entry and exit for a hardwood, or different hardwoods. You would use different ones. So if somebody says, hey, what would you use to run 500 feet of this crown molding? Well, I need more stuff. I need to know what species of wood it is, what grade, what cut of it is, because I may pick a different corrugated head just because the knife entry would be different. And everything's like that. I mean, every single thing is like that. There's nuances to every little step.
All right, so there's our intro. Let me back it up a minute, because we're going to talk about how fastidious you are. People write that word down. You might want to look it up, but here's where we're going with this. So Kent and Jamie, just for me, give me really quickly a little bit about Pawleys Island, where you're from, but more importantly, where'd you come up with Low Country Hardwood Floors? I like that.
So Low Country Flooring, in 1992, we were trying to come up with a name for our business. One of my father's best friends owned a company called Low Country Forestry Products. He'd been in business for decades. Just pillar of the community kind of guy. And I was literally sitting in his office and said, I'm trying to think of a name of my company. I don't want to name it Kent's Hardwood Floors or Kent and Jamie's Hardwood Floors. I want it to be more professional or whatever. And so we're sitting there. He goes, man, you're in the heart of the Low Country. It's the most beautiful place on earth. He said, and the best reputation company in the area is named Low Country Forestry Products, obviously talking about his own company. He said, Start there. So I said, okay, Low Country Flooring. He said, I'd be honored. And there's how we came up with the name for the business. Pawleys Island is just a very old resort town on the coast of South Carolina. Some of the houses here were built on the island were built in the 1800s. Georgetown, which is the main town that's about 10 or 15 minutes away, is the third oldest city in the state of South Carolina. Deep water port, beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. There was at one time the largest lumber company in the Western Hemisphere was just a couple of blocks from my grandfather's house. So both of us are multi-generation right here in this small town. The town itself is a population of about 15,000 people. So it's a very small town.
And for me, like Jamie, start with you. How did you get into this? Like, what was the transition? Next thing you know, you're doing hardwood flooring.
So we're young men. You got to think this was 1992-ish.
I was an old man then.
So Kent's father is one of his friends, Wade Townsend. We called him Hamp. He was a lumber broker, and he had come to Kent. Now Kent and I knew each other, but we weren't very close. We just knew each other as, just from hanging out in the same town. And he came to Kent and had some flooring he needed run. Now Kent's father's cabinet shop was still in business at the time. They had a winding molding molder. And so now I'm hearing this story secondhand because Kent calls me and says, hey, I need some help making some flooring. I need somebody to stand behind this molder and catch some boards coming out the other side. So I went to his dad's shop, and we're running this flooring for Hamp. And the installer that was supposed to put that flooring in for Hamp stood him up. So when he came to pick the flooring up, he said, have you guys ever put in a hardwood floor before? And we were like, no, but it can't be that hard. The boards go together, but we can figure it out. And Kent said, well, how much does it pay? And Hamp told him how much a square foot, and Kent said, well, that's exactly what we do. We'll figure it out. Because we were trying to, we were young. We were trying to, we both were very young fathers. And so we're trying to feed our children and keep the lights on, And so we started putting in floors.
Was it unfinished? An unfinished floor?
It was unfinished.
When you get done, did you go, now what do we do? Now you have to learn sanding and finishing.
So we go, we put this floor in. We'd never done it before. We had to go rent equipment, so we rent a manual nailer that barely worked, and it was just, and we figured it out like we've done everything in our life. That's, we run into a problem and said, okay, we got to solve it, and it might have been unconventional, but it got solved, and we learned, and we got better every time, So that was literally how we got into the flooring industry.
And then when did you tie in the sand? At some point, did you let somebody else sand it, or you did it?
Mm-mm. Right. So what happened is we're installing floors, and we're pretty much not sanding yet, and we ended up getting a large job up in Briarcliff Acres. It was about 6,600 feet. And we go and we install this floor, and we bought our first sander, and literally I'd never even seen a floor sander. Kent,
I'd never seen one.
We'd never seen a floor sander before, so we got
not a belt sander. We had seen like an old 504 or whatever, but
right. So it's funny how things in your life, little things, will make your life go in a different path. So we couldn't afford a floor sander. So we had a rep, Mike Taylor, with Ampro. Yep, with Ampro. So Mike tells us about this green machine, Hummel, that could sand our floors.
State of the art.
And but we couldn't afford one. So Mike, on his dime. Now you got to think, this man making this decision to help these two young guys sand a floor could have literally, we might not be here had he not done that. So he, on his dime, brings us a Hummel and lets us pay him in payments. And
we paid him a third down.
Right, a third down.
And then as we completed we had 3 jobs coming up, and as we completed the 3 jobs, we paid him as we finished those 3 jobs. This is a sales rep for Ampro 30 years ago. And literally from my recollection, they didn't finance equipment. This man met us, talked to us, believed in us, and went and paid for this machine out of his own money and financed it to us. And I'm sure he charged us a few $100 extra, but we couldn't have done it any otherwise. But so that first house that we sanded. So one thing that I guess we had an advantage over was having grown up in a millwork shop. Yeah. I was young, but at that time I had literally been around woods and custom wood products for 2 decades.
Now I had not. I'm a learn as I go person, so I'm following Kent's lead, and he's showing me how to do this stuff, and I'm just soaking it all in because I knew nothing about wood other than you climbed a tree, and that was about the extent of it.
The neat thing in that whole story, though, is I think, other than having worked in a custom woodworking shop for my father, neither one of us had ever worked for a hardwood flooring company, never been around somebody, watched them install or watched them sand and finish a floor. And the thing that I think was so good about that is we had been around and seen and knew what furniture quality, custom, high-end woodworking was supposed to look like. We had no clue how people did floors, but in my mind, in our mind, we knew what it could be gotten to because you can do a tabletop that way. It's just bigger.
Yeah.
So we go in and we start working on this floor. It's 6,600 feet. It's 2 of us and one of our other buddies that we pulled in to sand this thing. And it's as perfectly flat as the Mellon Auditorium is.
No way, this is Heart Pine.
It's Heart Pine.
It's Heart Pine.
So I heard this story. So this is important. Your first floor is 6,600 feet of Heart Pine. The temperature changes, your sap runs. The temperature cools, it bleeds through the finish. You got to wash it down with alcohol or thinner to clean. And this is the first floor that you get living down south with the heat and the humidity.
Right.
Yeah, keep going. Go ahead.
So the guy that Jamie was just telling you about was one of my father's really good friends. So he hired us, and he had seen how conscientious I was in the millwork shop. Most of what I did was setting up equipment, making the knives. Once the machine was running and running perfectly, I didn't want to mess with it. I'd rather somebody else run the machine. I wanted to go basically either be the inventor or the problem solver for the next setup, And so he knew how particular I was. So he's telling me, he says, I understand that you've not done much of this, but watching you in this shop, there's no way you can't go do this job and make me look good by bringing you in. So this was the guy that owned his house. Now today he's a billionaire, but he was a very successful man 30 years ago. He's like, if you make this guy happy, I'll get more work out of it. We'll get more work out of it. So we go up there, we're sanding this floor. Now it was 6,600 feet and there's 3 of us on it. We sanded on it for the man was patient. We spent a month sanding this man's floor.
No way.
This guy Wade Townsend, Hamp Townsend, shows up about 2.5 weeks into it and starts fussing at us. And this was what he said, and it's one of the best.
We talk about this all the time.
It's one of the best compliments we've ever gotten. He walks in and says, "Boys, this ain't no dang piano we're building.
Right?
It's a floor. Put some finish on this thing. I've never seen anything sanded this good in my life. Put some finish on it." And we worked on it for another week and a half before we put the finish down. But this ain't no piano we're building, was his comment.
I have the same story. I played guitar and I met a guy. We started working together, and we were both we played guitar together. We were woodworkers, and we did a floor. And my whole concept was, why can't it look like a guitar body? Well, when you see how they make those, you ain't making a floor look like that. That's a process. So this is all right. This is what we're talking about.
But anything can be done to a higher level.
Right. Well, you guys are the reason you're on for the second time, because we had you on with Spriglin, and then you guys kind of were in the background. We were talking about a lot of things, but you're kind of known throughout the industry as probably one of the premier sand and finishing people, and that's a lot said. There's a lot of guys that can sand and finish, but from experience, there are categories. There's newbies. There are people that work in teams that have to bulk it out, get it done, 3-cut, get done. Some guys refuse. They need to get 2 cuts, get done. Old mill buildings, rental properties. But then there's that next level of people that do really fine homes, and they've got to take more time, and they can't skip grits, and they've got to do these things right. And there are guys that I know that do amazing work. I did really good work. But what you guys do is just not on the same level. It's slowed down. It's like microsurgery. It's meticulous. It's clean. How did you just jump from, hey, we have a rental sander, to we're working like surgery? Or was there this entire period where you had to learn like everybody else to run a little machine, a big machine, a buffer, an edger, a sander, a vacuum?
So the first the first sander that I ever put my hands on was a brand new Hummel floor sander. Okay. Now, we were renting an edger and renting a buffer, but I'd never, don't tell TJ, but I'd never run a split drum until later. I ran a split drum for nostalgia reasons. The very first thing I ever ran was the new state-of-the-art Hummel. And when Mike brought the machine and delivered it, so he brings it, it's in a crate. We take it into the house and we take the crate off, and Jamie and I both look at it and look at each other, and we look at the salesman, Mike, and we went, that's not what I thought it would look like. Right. And this man is standing at this borderline mansion, and he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean it's not what you thought it would look like? I said, well, I've just never seen a floor sander before. And he says to me, you're going to sand this house? I said, yes, sir. He said, shut up. Now, this is the guy that's financing this thing to us. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to sand it. And he says, have you ever worked for anybody sanding a floor? Do you have anybody that's mentoring you through this? I said, no, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
So then I'm looking at the side of the Hummel. The Hummel's got the startup capacitor where you actually have to manually hit the startup capacitor.
Yes, yeah.
And it says start, run, and hold,
test. Yeah.
Hold for 3 seconds. He goes, well, do you have any questions for me? I said, I looked at the switch. I said, yeah. How do you turn it on, and how do you get the paper off of it? And he said, really? I said, really? So he told me, just hold the startup capacitor for 3 seconds. It's ready to run. Flip this lever, open this door. Here goes your paper. And here's an assortment of belts, and he left. And I'm telling you, that floor is as flat as what we planetary sand to this day. It just took us
a long time.
It took over a month.
You got to think, we're learning how to run edgers and everything. We're learning how to run everything.
Everything. Well, it's like you skipped driver's ed and went straight to NASCAR. Like, I don't even know.
Slow motion NASCAR.
Like Kent said, one advantage that he had was he grew up in a mill workshop. So if you think about a cabinet door being sanded, the material's moving, but everything else is stationary. So Kent's reversing it and thinking, okay, my material's stationary, we got to move things around on top of it. So as we're sanding the floor and you look across, we could tell that the knots were ever so slightly higher because of the head of the machine, right?
Yeah.
So Kent was like, we got to have a hard plate. So when we start buffing, we figure out how to get this paper on a hard plate, and
we're making hard plates.
We're making hard plates.
Right.
So we can get these knots flat. And then, now we got swirls in it. We palm sanded
6,600
every single knot got
with air sanders like you use in a cabinet shop now.
Did the equipment?
Yeah, but those are good. That's not bad.
They're good, but go do your last couple of grits that you would do with a trio with air DA sanders in somebody's house with no dust containment on it. No?
Right.
I did a whole house. It was our farmhouse with a Porter Cable clapboard sander, and I took all the guides off of it, and I was doing this with it was brutal.
Oh my God,
I can't believe that you were able to pull this off on a hard pine floor for the good Lord. But you did it. What'd you coat it with? I just curious. How'd you wrap it up? What'd you coat it with? Soap and gasoline.
All right. He wanted. So we had used urethanes and varnishes and all this kind of stuff in the mill workshop. He wanted a tongue hole. I think he wanted Watco tongue hole.
I think it was Watco.
But anyway, he wanted a tongue hole. That's all he wanted on the floor. So I didn't know much about it. I called Mike, our sales rep, and said, look, this guy wants this particular tongue hole. He goes, yeah, a lot of people like it on pines. And I said, well, how do you apply it? He said, well, you just put it on with a mop.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, not a problem. So he's talking about a lamb's wool mop. He's talking about a lamb's wool block and mopping it on and then coming back.
Did you buy a sheep?
I went to the Family Dollar and bought a mop.
An actual mop.
Like a mop.
Yeah.
And we mopped off the floor, and then we took terry cloth towels and chamoised it off. But we took a mop like the janitor would use, and we went through a ridiculous amount of tongue oil because obviously we're putting it in the wrong thing. And then we got on. Now it turned out great. It turned out great, by the way.
Yeah. Was it? Did you say it was tar oil, or was it Watka oil?
I think so. Yeah, Watka, I think.
There's a house up the street here for one of the richest people in the world. He's famous. He lives just about at a quarter mile from here. I did every floor in his house, and I booked it out for the best finish possible. And he made me get 7 5-gallon pails of Watka oil. You know what it took to do that whole house? Half of a pail. It was Brazilian cherry. It just wouldn't.
It just sat on top.
And I go, you're crazy.
I can tell you, heart pine soaks it in like
yeah. Now listen, I want to stop you right there. I got to preempt this podcast by saying we brought these guys in to discuss how they're probably the best floor sanding finishing guys in the world. I didn't know we were going back to the chicken or the egg thing. How the hell you got from there in 1992 to where you got now? One of the things is that's infamous for you guys, and I talked to Sprig Lynn about this. He basically said about Kent. He said, "Yeah, he goes, brother, you don't know nothing." He goes, that boy, you put a lump of coal.
Sound just like him.
Hey, listen, Yankee, I tell you what, you better ask that boy if you put a lump of coal up his butt, he'll have a diamond in 5 minutes. No one vacuums like that fella right there. He don't have dust on top of dust. And so I'm like, it's just crazy because I saw the work that you did. You can see it on Wood Floor Business Magazine in the auditorium, the Mellon
Andrew Mellon
auditorium. And they had inspectors. There were like dozens of them from the EPA. Now they got to find something, right? What was it? 17 of them. Not one of them saw not a blemish in the floor, not dust, not in the 60-foot ceilings, nowhere. How the hell did you pull that off?
Well, so thank God Sprig took care of all the demo and the reinstallation of the wood. Him and his team and Bumpus came up and helped. We showed up for the sanding finishing portion, and so. We showed up with our dust containment systems. We basically took the gas powered atomic systems that Dan came up with that Bona ended up buying out or selling or whatever, and we modified those. Like I said, everything can be done better. Our trailer mounted systems are in a little bit larger trailers and they're more efficient, but they're built off of the idea that Dan Gill, the engineer that did that stuff for Bono, came up with. We just souped it up, modified everything. We do houses here regularly where people have really fine art in the houses. They don't want to move all their furniture out. People now know that wood dust is a carcinogen. So not only that, above and beyond that, the people that work for us, some of them have worked for us for decades. We've been at this for 30 years. I don't want to have, some sort of lung disease when I go to retire and not be able to play with my grandkids because I've been breathing some ridiculous amount of wood dust my whole life. Same thing with fumes from finishes, and you can go down that rabbit hole to no end of how much safer and cleaner you can be for your crew, for your clients, for yourself. Secondary to that is if we're rolling machines around on a floor that's not spotless, the machine is rolling across dust particles that make the machine move to a certain extent. It transfers to the head. It makes marks in the floor. If you get sawdust, especially if you get extra sawdust stuck on the wheels, you hear people say, "Oh, well, clean your wheels and it'll fix those big waves." You should have had them spotless before you ever got started and kept them spotless. So really good dust containment helps with that. Not only that, if any step that you're doing on the floor, if it's absolutely spotless from the past before, your eye is always inspecting. So every hour, every minute that you're running a machine, if you're looking at a spotlessly clean floor, the odds of you missing something go down more and more the more steps that are spotless. And also, too, the less chance of you picking up some ghost grit and having some crazy mark in the floor because you're keeping it spotless the entire time you're working on it. Homeowners see the fact that they have no dust in their house. They love all that. They sell for you because of that, but we're giving them this exquisite sanding job that part of comes from keeping it spotless the whole time. So there's a lot of other things that go into it, but if you don't have good dust containment, we have extra residue of dust all over the floor, and a Homer or a Galaxy or whatever is rolling around on a thin layer of dust. Sooner or later, it's clumpy dust, And now we've got wheels that aren't perfect.
Hey, Wood Floor Pros, this is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. Look for an article from Low Country's Kent Rogerson in the upcoming June-July 2024 issue of Wood Floor Business. If you don't get the magazine, make sure you sign up for your free subscription by going to woodfloorbusiness.com, clicking on magazine, and filling out the short form. While you're subscribing, make sure you check the box to also subscribe to the WFBE News. Then you'll be sure to get all our online-only content, including the latest industry news, new products as they come out, and blogs by popular authors like Matt Garcia and Angelo DeSanto. And of course, make sure you follow WFB everywhere you're on social media, and join the conversations with your fellow wood flooring pros. That's it for now. Let's get back to Stephen's talk with Kent and Jamie from Low Country Flooring.
So back up a second. How do you... In 1992, you don't buy a Hummel out of the box with a dust containment system. Everybody was learning to hook to a vacuum, or before that, putting plastic walls up. Or they used to tell us in the NWFA, hang a sheet and spray mist it with water. Like, when did you guys, between cracking open the wooden case that is the Hummel, go, we got to control our dust?
The second job.
Yep.
So
what did you do? What was the answer?
So that first job that we did, we ended up with big fans and literally took a yard blower in it trying to clean dust down. Right. And it looked like the house was on fire with the dust blowing back in it.
I've seen that.
We still own, so the second job, I mean to cut you off, but we still had this buffer, by the way. So the Hummels, we ran bags. That was what we did.
Even to this day.
Right. But we did a good job at cleaning them, and we would buy multiple bags, and we would, we handled that the best we could.
Wash them every job and rotate them out.
Right. So we had a buffer, and we're on a job site, and we're trying to figure out how can we contain this dust. We didn't have a hole saw. We had a vacuum, we had a shop vac, but we wanted to put a port on the side of this buffer and put something out of it and put the shop vac to it. Onto the casing of the buffer. Well, we didn't have a hole saw, so we take a drill. We still have this buffer, and we drill a bunch of holes in a pattern, and take a hammer and bop the hole out, and put a PVC pipe on the top of it, and put a shop vac on it. And that was our first
and build a skirt.
Build
a dust skirt out of a vinyl,
and it worked like a champ.
I did what you did, Kent. I used to sell industrial equipment, so before all of this flooring stuff, we set up big cabinet shops, even places like Batesville Cascade, which is owned by American Tourister. I would go in and set them up with Delta dust containment systems. And I remember thinking, these are small enough. I could put one in a room and run my sander into it. That's when the cyclone separators and everything else came out. So you looked at this right away and said, dust is an issue. Let's do something about it.
Well, so my father's millwork shop was, 45,000 50,000 square feet, something like that. And all the dust containment that was in there was custom built by, engineered and custom built by this company up in Raleigh. And he had multiple cyclones, floor sweeps, all the anti-statics, all the hoppers that were sealed but would feed off and drop into trailers that you would take to the paper mill for pulp or whatever. So I'd watched and been around and seen a very high-end, expensive, well-working engineered system go in. I'm somebody that asks a million questions, and as they were putting it in, I'm asking all the questions, and they're telling me about the pressures and the volumes and the lengths and the reductions and so on and so forth. And so the cyclone pre-separators that you see people using today, we got cyclone pre-separators that were ugly, but they were just out of like a regular galvanized looking tin or whatever. But we had pre-separators made 28 years ago, and get these 240 vacs that are low lift but high volume. Most of your edgers and your big machines blew plenty of air. You just needed it to dispense somewhere.
Contain it,
So we were running pre-separators on containers 28 years ago.
Well, listen, being from milling, and that's where I started. I think I was only 19 or something. Stuff's dangerous too. This stuff, especially when you're doing what you're doing, it's super highly dangerous to put that into any type of bag container. You hit a nail, boom. I told you, Batesville Casket Company, they were running multiple radial arm saws. One of them went through a piece of wood that had a nail in it. In the middle of the tree, they couldn't see it. It sparked the dust collection, which is out the back of the building, exploded the back of the building. 5-alarm fire became a 7-alarm fire. It just, that's how quickly it went up. When you were working with all this stuff, you probably already knew, okay, we got to get this stuff off property. It's got to go.
For sure. There's, we're in a very small area, and there has been 2 different hardwood flooring guys or companies, whatever, that have caught homes on fire.
Happens all the time.
We have caught a couple of dumpsters on fire by not, wetting the rags down adequately enough and throwing them in a dumpster. We had our dumpster catch on fire. Right. So I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified of fire. If you look at any of our trucks, our dust containment units have any door you go to, the 2 side doors or the back doors, there's large fire extinguishers at every door. Our box fans have fire extinguishers on both sides of the doors. Our shops, our warehouses, we just got
smoke detectors, everything.
That's smart.
Smokes.
I went to a seminar once. This guy was talking about this, and people, as you know, they'll think this is like voodoo magic. No, I 1 year at my company, we had 7 vacuum fires. They leave them out in the sun, or the sun comes through the back of the van, and next thing you know, you turn the vacuum on and poof. But this guy at a seminar said, watch this. And he took a rag and he soaked it in linseed oil and he tied it in like a knot, and he just put it outside in the parking lot. And he whispered to some guy. What he actually said to him was, keep an eye on that. And we got talking, and he said, a little while later, he goes, everybody want to look out the window? This thing was just smoking. It was ready to explode. How do you guys, when now you've started, you're rolling, you're standing like every other guy on the block, but you got this attention to detail. How many guys today work for your company on and off at one time?
So we've only got 9 guys.
That's still more than most guys.
Well, in 2000, I would say 2001 to 2006 or 7, somewhere in there, we got up to low 50s, 51, 52 guys, something like that.
So how do you bring on a guy or new people or anyone to work for you? You can't really bring guys into the fray real too quickly in any company, but how do you get them in to do what you do, learn what you do? Do they already have experience? And how do you get them on the Low Country game page of no dust, we're perfect, keep it clean? And how do they keep up with you?
So here's the thing. So our head guy now, we tell everybody he runs our crews. He's our head guy. He's got the same amount of experience as us. He worked for other companies around the Charlotte area. It's about 4 hours northwest of us. When he came to work for us, he had about, 15 years experience, something like that. Had about half of his career with us. Well, the first couple of years, Jamie and I are like, this guy's the fastest guy. We just couldn't believe that people could install, sand, and finish, that fast. He grew up in a market where it was, you and a helper go nail 1,000 feet of strip a day, and that's just dumbfounding to me. I couldn't do that for love nor money. But you look at the work and you go, okay, I see how you're doing that. But I'm not going to have all these staircases and H patterns and I won't, even where the butts are going up under the baseboard, I want all of it nice and straight and lined up. I don't want a bunch of even if it's going to be covered with the baseboard, I want it to look like we took the time to cut them properly. Yeah. You do one thing right, you should do all of it right. Yeah. And the biggest challenge we had, which we don't have anymore because he's completely Team Blue and sees it the way we do now, but was slowing him down and saying all these other little things that we do are more important to me than you turning 1,000 feet a day.
Covering square footage.
And for a minute there, it was like he's looking at me like I'm crazy, because he's like, why would you do half the square footage to what I can do? But in my mind, so if you look at any of our quotes over the last 30 years, Jamie, so we don't do it now, but my wife actually does them now. But back then we used to type them up, and every quote, it would be very specific. We're not just filling out blanks, but we always ended them with, we're looking forward to making another showpiece for Low Country Flooring and for your family. Right. Because that was, you had people say, what's the mission statement, I guess. Well, all we want to do is leave showpieces behind that are going to last, that are investments. They're not floor coverings, they're investments.
Right.
They should be worth more 20 years from now than they were the day we did them for you. And if we properly guide people through their selections and do them knowing what we know about woods and finishes and do them with care, their investment should be here long after we're gone. I mean, we just got through restoring floors in a building that Sprig's grandfather built in the 30s.
Right.
Same floor. We just did some work to them, and restored them. That's what I want. I want our work to be sitting here long after we're gone. Therefore, we, even if it's an expensive floor, we gave them their money's worth because they always have it, or they sell it to somebody else.
Can you get, obviously the level that you're thinking at, it's can you get all 9 of your guys to think like that, or do you even expect them to think, or is there a little bit? I mean, because obviously the way you're looking at this is it's like rocket science, and you know how to achieve that. You know how to get that goal. I think that your level, the bar you've set's got to be really tough for the average person to get, or do you go out and look for these people that can work at this fastidious, obsessive level?
So one reason we're much smaller now, employee-wise, than what we were back then is because, well, a couple of reasons. One, when we tried to do everybody's floor, we ended up doing stuff that we didn't really want to put our name on. You didn't brag about it at dinner Friday night. One thing that's happened to us now is, I'm getting ready to turn 53 years old here in 2 weeks. I can't sleep at night because I get so excited about the project that we're working on for the next supporter. It's funny. So when we first started, we were looking for contractors and clientele. So we were looking for clients. And over the last, I'd say 12 years, we don't even have clients anymore. We almost have supporters. When we leave to go up to D.C. to do work, whether it's the auditorium or whatever we're working on, if we're doing something at the Supreme Court for Sprig and his guys, we have people literally meeting us at the shop on the Monday morning that we're getting ready to leave to see us off safely, and the well wishes, and it's almost like
they rally behind us. It's actually amazing.
It's pretty amazing. It's a small town vibe for sure, but a lot of these people there are clients, but there are supporters. There are sales staff. By the way, we have no sales staff. There's no salespeople in our company. Jamie and I and my wife, one or the two or all three of us. We met with clients this morning.
Today,
it was all three of us, and we spent a couple hours with one client just building a house as an initial meeting. We have no salespeople anymore because back in the day we had salespeople, and two salespeople could sell us out of work to the point where we were pulling our hair out trying to do it, and that's where
you make mistakes and things.
Miscommunications. Right. A salesperson may be able to close the deal better than I can, but they can't explain the process better than one of us. And the more clients know going in to a project, the more of the details they know, the more they're willing to learn, the happier they are, and the more they end up becoming the sales staff, because they tell the neighbors, I had no idea there was this much to it. Let me tell you what these people do. Let me tell you how it looks when they come in. And, and all of a sudden you have someone that paid you for your services and your knowledge, your craftsmanship, who is now your sales staff in that neighborhood.
And this is probably where it affords you the opportunity to probably be, I'm guessing, paid more, charge more. The only way you can take your time is to be able to do that. And I guess the only way you can be paid more is that your end result is clearly at another level. You have
to give what you're selling. You know what I mean?
So we went to one of the NWFA shows. Jamie missed this when Kerry, the guy that I'm bragging so much about to you, Kerry went with me to one of the shows that Jamie missed. And we went to several things, and everybody was trying to upsell. Charge, know what you're worth, charge more, know what you're worth. And I'm sitting there listening to all of it. And on the flight back home, Carrie and I were talking, and I'm sitting here just thinking about it. Know what you're worth, charge more, know what you're worth. Well, okay, but do you know what you're worth? what are you giving these clients for this extra charge? If I'm charging X and the guy down the street is 30% less than X, how do I validate that 30%? Am I giving them better species of woods, more understanding a better grade, a better average length, or what a more consistently dried product, a more area specifically dried product? There's 1,000 little things that go into it that if I'm giving them all that stuff, I'm actually the deal. I'm the deal because I'm taking care of all the potential headaches that they're more than likely going to have with somebody that's just buying mass-produced stuff and slapping some cheap finish on it and not taking moisture readings and acclimating and all that kind of stuff. I was telling you, so Jamie's always wide open and busy. He's got another meeting. Yep. So you and I are going to end up having to finish up.
Yeah, I hate to dip. I need to run.
Jamie Lambert, you're one of the floor guys. I appreciate it. I love talking with you guys. You go do your thing, and we'll catch up.
Look forward to the next one. You got to keep us coming back.
Let's go back for a second to the Mellon Center. In Wood Floor Business Magazine, we put a bunch of quotes and stuff that you always have something funny to quote. I'm going to tell you what it was in there, and people can go read this. You tell me where these came from. One of your quotes was, you put 10 master technicians in a room, and each of them is going to look at something and the other's doing, right? Something different that the other one's doing, or something the other one's doing. But you also said that you put what's a BD12? Is that a Galaxy? And it says you started sanding with no belt. What are you talking about?
Well, a lot of operators use operator belts, so they're not pulling so hard. It's easier on their back. It's
a waist belt. I gotcha. Okay,
a waist belt. So a BD12, as far as I know, is one of the most powerful, heaviest machines.
It is. No doubt.
So, so the thing about if you put 10 experts in a room, you're going to get slightly different ways of doing it. So, again, I'm going to go back to Kerry for a minute. So Jamie and I grew up learning on our own. It was all trial and error and trying to be, if the word conscientious and analytical could be capitalized and just stuck everywhere, that was what we were trying to do. We're trying to be as thoughtful as we could about everything, from the company, from the people's driveway to the flower bed to the quality of the floor we're actually putting into the impression they're left with. And then analytical, to the point where I bet I've spent hundreds of hours laying on a floor watching a floor sander pass by my head as I'm trying to decide if I like the density of the vulcanizing on the head. I'm all the time trying to pick every little thing apart. What can we do better, and testing it to see, and spend a bunch of money down every rabbit hole testing things to find what we actually like. So I stepped off. So you let me go down the rabbit hole there for a second. But so Kerry comes in, and the way they ran those flooring companies in Charlotte was so much different than anything we had ever seen. Productivity was off the charts, but not. He could just do things so efficiently and so fast, but we wanted it to a different level of quality. So those personalities, an expert floor guy, but from a different personality and different mindset of production. Us with our mindset, man, we're too slow to really make any money.
Right.
Needed to blend, right? So he sped us up a little bit. We slowed him down a lot, I think. And it's a marriage, right? So he really helped us a lot. There's some other floor guys that we had worked for us over the years. One of our guys, ended up passing away a few years ago, who had worked for another company. Here's what we do now. Rarely, I'm getting ready to break my rule, because there's a guy from New York that flew down and interviewed with us a couple of weeks ago, and we've made him an offer, and I think he's going to move down here and go to work for us. But we don't look for hardwood floor guys, and here's why. Habits are so hard to break.
Baggage. Yeah.
Now it's paid off in spades with Kerry, because he's exceptional. I mean, the guy's just absolutely exceptional. but other guys that have had those fast, just rock and roll habits have most of them been impossible to break for me. So I'd almost rather find. So let me tell you about our newest employee. He's been with us for a couple years now. After working for us for, I don't know, 6 months maybe, he's intelligent. He's a problem solver. He's conscientious and young. He's 30 years old. That's young to me. I'm getting old. But so let me tell you how I found him. I say I found him. I was having a seawall put in around my house out on. We live basically on an old plantation out on Winyah Bay, and there was a seawall. We had to put a seawall around our place to protect it. He worked for my friend that owned the seawall company, so he's coming out there with his 10 or 12 employees. I had another one of my young employees with me, and I'm pointing at it. I said, "Watch these guys." So I've got a saying: we're doing hardwood floors, but we're also putting on a show. And when I say putting on a show, I don't mean a fake window dressing kind of show. I'm talking about we're carrying ourselves just so we're, if you're outside on your phone for an hour and a half on the phone talking to your girlfriend, my homeowner's going, well, no wonder you charge so much, right? You have to be professional. That's what I'm talking about putting on a show. So I'm trying to explain that to another one of our employees who's actually at my house. I'm telling him, I said, watch these guys work today. There's 10 or 12 of them out there. At the end of the day, I want you to tell me which one I would hire if he wanted a job. So at the end of the day, I said, which one? And he pointed straight to this young man. He said, I would hire that guy. Turns out that guy's name's Josh, by the way. Okay. So I had watched this young man work multiple days at my house. He was the guy that when somebody needed a tool, he ran to the truck and got it. He was also the guy that jumped in the pond first. He was also the guy that was out there with a level trying to get perfectly plumb and level my seawall that other guys are just trying to stick in and leave because it's just a seawall, right? And he's being very obviously very critical of the quality of this seawall that's going in. Without even talking to him, I'm going, that's the personality you hire, right? And I'm trying to make that point to one of my employees and showing him why it's so important. Because here in this story, I'm the homeowner paying the bill, so I feel like I'm getting my value out of this guy, where these other three guys are over here taking an extra 10 smoke breaks a day. If you follow what I'm saying. So as I'm making that point, I'm thinking to myself, God, this young man's going to do good wherever he goes. 3 months later, when they're finishing my seawall, my friend comes over to me and says, you should offer Josh a job. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm looking for the hidden camera. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, yes. He said, I think he would be 1,000,000 times happier with you, your personality, your desire for perfection, your critiquing, your finish work. I've got this young man out here carrying 6x6s in the mud, for God's sakes. He swats mosquitoes all day long. I think he would be happier with you. So 2 things. One, that shows how much my friend thought of this guy to literally honestly want him to be happier, not just keep putting in his 6x6s and making him some money. And 2, I'm sitting there going, holy cow, I pointed this young man out 3 months ago to my employees saying, anyone that carries theirself this way is someone I would want to hire, not necessarily a hardwood flooring professional. So anyway, we hired him, and he's everything I thought he would be. He's a 30-year-old, starting on his 2nd year in the hardwood floor business. And if everybody's not proud of a guy like that coming into our industry, they don't know what's good for our industry.
Right. So you bring it up, and when I ran my company, I ran into this. You've got a guy like that, and you said we got to pick the A team. Only the starters are going to go up to DC, okay? And you must have, I don't know, 100, 200, 500 companies in your area alone doing hardwood floor sanding and finishing. And they must be looking at you going, well, why are you taking this kid? Or why are you joining Sprig? Or how did you people, there are other people going, how do we get in there? That you have to run into that, right?
So I've actually, there's quite a few guys around the country, mostly in the Southeast, that I feel like mostly through social media that I've taken a liking to, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
And you end up having in-depth conversations with these guys about how to improve their businesses. Or I don't do it. I don't do as much like Matt Garcia does on publicly on Facebook. I'm more let me find somebody I think is receptive and reciprocal. Because you can learn something from the brand new guy that just started last year if you're open-minded. So I try to find those guys and talk to them and try to help share. And people ask me a lot, what got you there? Well, first, what I feel like got me there, and Jamie, he's walked out now, but you're sitting there thinking about every job like you're practicing to get your process down to go do the White House. Before anybody ever mentions the White House.
You're practicing for the Super Bowl. Every game's a Super Bowl. Yep.
Exactly. So I grew up racing motocross. Motocross is, oh my God, I loved motocross so much, still do. Ride for fun now, but avid fan. I'm watching my friends' kids turn pro, and it's very fulfilling and exciting to me. But one thing I learned about life through motocross was you practiced and trained all week with the same kind of intentions that you are going to race on Saturday. Because if you practice, you show up with a clean bike, you show up in a manner that would make your sponsors proud, you put in the effort that would make your father proud, make your grandfather proud. Wednesday at the practice track, when you get to the motocross track Saturday or Sunday, you're doing the same thing that you did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So even if it's hardwood floors or anything else, if you're a roofer, if you are doing it like your intention is to make your father proud, and you're going to do it better this time than you did the last time, because if you did it last time, you should have learned something. I don't care if it's your 400th time putting in 2 1/4 strip oak, you should have learned something, or you're not an analytical person. If you do those things and adopt those mindsets and do it like you're practicing the same way you're going to race. We do hardwood floors like at some point somebody was going to ask us to do the White House. There were times where we made very, very little money, and we were sitting there. I'm not going to lie, I second-guessed myself a lot of times. I was thinking, dude, do you really got to do it like a piano? You could have stopped 35%, 40% effort ago, and the average homeowner would think you were a saint.
Absolutely.
But I know we pick our own work apart. We police our own work. If a homeowner finds a true imperfection in our craftsmanship, we have really dropped the ball, because we know what we're looking at more than any of them do. So if they found it, we have really dropped the ball. So practice like you're going to race. If there's a young guy out there or whoever that's starting a flooring company, do every single job like you're leaving it for the inspector that's going to hire you to do the mansion of your dreams is going to come look at that work. Not your best job that somebody's going to pay you extra money for. Every single job, do it as if that's going to be your selling card for the next job the dream job that's going to be dropped in your potential lap. So, and in relationships, I see so many hardwood floor guys. We're such a niche industry. They're jealous of each other. They look at everybody as competition. And I was talking about our supporters, so I was doing Facebook videos every morning in D.C., whether we were at the Supreme Court or not when we were at the other house, right, but the Supreme Court or at the Mellon Auditorium. I was doing videos and posting them, your story or whatever. Sure. Hey, everybody, this is where we got to yesterday. This is what we're going to be doing today, and that kind of stuff. And one of the things I said in one of my videos, and I had a lot of people message me and call me and text me and say, man, that's different than what I thought you would say. The top hardwood flooring guys, the absolute top guys, in my opinion, are not competing against each other. Those top guys, if they're smart, they're collaborating.
Yep. They're colleagues.
Right.
That's how I met all of you guys. You know, you're right. I want to go back a second to what you said. You were talking about this exact thing. And there's a difference between the people you meet online or around the country. And I always say pissing around the lamppost. You meet a floor guy and it's like, here we go. I've been doing it 10 years. I've been doing it 30. Well, I use a Hummel. Well, I use a Galaxy. Blah, 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 goes round. When I meet guys like you, we go right straight to, oh my God, I know you. I'd like to learn from you. There's a difference between people that say, I'm so jealous. How can I learn to be you? And people that don't say they're jealous and they'll say, I'd never do it that way. When you're doing this, okay, Kent, is every day a Mellon Center auditorium? Is that what you've reached? Or is that your pinnacle? That's right now, that's the baby.
Well, the Mellon Auditorium is the largest job we've ever done. I tell my guys all the time. So back to the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Jamie and I built a relationship with Sprigg. Hat in our hand, he is. I would say he is the royalty of he and the family.
He's an ambassador, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay. And his father passed away a couple of years ago. One of the things I'm so grateful for is that I actually built a relationship with Sprigg to the point where I was able to go to his father's house and meet his mom and dad. And it might sound hokey or corny or whatever, but I can't wait for him to meet my father. It's we were up in D.C. last week for my father's 83rd birthday. He was he was given a tour that just made me so proud. The one thing that I missed in that trip that I really wanted to do, Sprigg ended up getting tied up somewhere, and my father's 83, and I had a really bad back surgery a couple of years ago. And by the time he was done with his tour that they gave him at the White House, he was exhausted and I had to take him back to the hotel. So I missed the chance to get my father to meet Sprigg. But we're going to work that out this summer. But, I'm sitting here thinking about this. You've got this family that is so just in that circle of whether it's floor business or just our nation's capitals in general. Sprigg's grandfather was the architect of the seventh architect of the Capitol. They built the Supreme Court. You walk through that place and you just go, oh my!
And they have that job for life.
Every craftsman that touched that place deserves a salute. You know what I mean? They're just you can tell that the love and care that got put into that place,
the pride, the craftsmanship,
had to be. Oh man, it's just off the charts. Way nicer than the other buildings.
That's what's unanswered about what you do, and I think that's what I spotted when we've spoke before. We're just looking at your work online or talking to you right now. You remind me of a lot of people where that your search and your quest for excellence was never, hey, I want to go work in the White House. I'm looking for something or some adulation. You're that classic person that refines their skills and just looks at the work and says, I want it better. I want it better. I want it better. Which what happens is people eventually look at your work. They come to you and they go, you're good. I want to have you do my stuff. That's what happened in my career. And I wanted to be, when I started, the best. I wanted to create the Sistine Chapel in a floor. And you know what? I never wound up being that guy. And it bothered me. And I that work wasn't here. Pound out red oak, put in stuff, do whatever you can do. It wasn't going to happen. But as my career evolved, I realized I love it. I'm a good technician. I can speak with people like you and learn as a colleague. There's different aspects to this orchestra. I'm more of a band leader than first violinist. What you do is so highly precision. I think people came looking for you guys for this type of work.
Well, so one thing too, when Jamie and I first started talking about it, if you look at pictures of our trucks from 30 years ago, on the side of the trucks it says Low Country Flooring, where hardwood flooring is an art form. And we wanted to do hardwood floors to another level. Having grown up in that mill workshop, I just knew it was possible. And nobody was doing it. So you see everybody talk about how, the joke on Facebook is, well, that doesn't work in my area, Well, mostly it's people making a joke of it now, but a couple of years ago, everybody's, well, you can't do that here. People won't pay that here. I live in South Carolina. I live in the county of Georgetown. So I'm in I don't know, we'd have to Google search it, but last time I checked, we're in the 37th poorest state in the Union. And I live in one of the poorest counties in one of the poorest states. And people tell me, well, you can't get that where I am. And I ask them where they are, and they're in Boca Raton. Right. And you're going, the per capita income of the people that live where you are is quadruple what the per capita income of the people that live where I am. There are people there that own a house that it's their castle. And if they know that somebody can come in and be conscientious to another level with their home, their castle, their house that's going to have no dust, no things missing in it, right? One thing that makes it hard to hire employees is because we're putting them in people's homes, and I'm looking homeowners in their face going, you do not have to worry about your jewelry box.
Right.
You're safe.
Your medicine cabinet, your crystal chandelier, right? Everything.
Right. Everybody I brought in your house has passed background checks that you cannot believe. Now, which makes it where I can't have 40 or 50 guys.
No.
But there are, so my wife, I've talked about her a couple of times. She doesn't want anybody in our house for any reason. I'm the guy that my buddies can stop by anytime. That's our castle. It's our stuff. She doesn't want someone there to work on the air conditioning system without me standing there overseeing them, right? So if there's personalities out there like that, if you have put the team together that shines and that's trustworthy and can pass the background checks to get in all these places and is conscientious, you're putting the whole package together, and that's where your value comes from. Not because you're going to charge people more money, but that charge what you're worth. How do you do the assessment of the value that you're giving the price on, right? So I keep listening to people spit off, charge what you're worth. Yeah, charge what you're worth. Give them the value for what you're charging them, right? And from stem to stern. My buddy Daniel, we talked about this for a brief minute the other night. There was a post on Facebook that he did that said something along the lines of, I'm gonna butcher this, just so Daniel forgive me, but something along the lines of, there's nothing new coming down. We're all just duplicating stuff that we've done before. And there was a bunch of comments kind of chiming in. I think he said Tom's the only person that he's seen do anything new. And everybody's chiming in, yeah, I'm so tired of herringbone, I'm so tired of this. And my comment underneath there was, everything can be done to another level. And when I say that, I mean it to the core. Your truck can be stocked and stored and organized to another level. Your samples can be made to another level. Your everything. Look who's back.
James back. There he is.
All dressed up. He's all dressed up too.
You talk about that. I'm a TV show and movie buff, and I used to be a screenwriter. So I remember there was an episode of Taxi, and Louis, De Palma, Danny DeVito, he had a blank check, and he didn't know, what he was allowed to put any number I want, and I used it in my business class. And they go, what kind of number do you put there? And he goes, not a number that's so high that they go, ooh, but not a number so low that they go, eh. And somebody once said to me, if your customers aren't complaining about your pricing, you leave money on the table. There should be a little room there for that. You never want to leave money on the table. And when you can do that much easier when you're not down in the mud wrestling with everybody for the cheapest, most average price around. The only way to beat that, get your quality level up. Would you rather get a job tomorrow selling Ford Escorts, or would you rather be the Range Rover guy? You purvey quality at a level that you're comfortable with, that you can afford to do quality craftsmanship. And it's good to be a trade. You can go do drywall and you can lay brick and you do whatever. But every trade has that level. You have to have it in here. You guys have it in you. There's no doubt about it.
So one thing that I tell people, right? So, a couple of these guys that I like so much that I tell you that I talk to, I brought them up one of our phone calls. There's a guy down in Florida, Justin Ayers. I like this guy so much. I haven't even met him in person, just 100 phone calls. I got a guy here in Greenville that's really building his business and trying to do it to a next level more than everybody around him. Guy's named Jason Anders. Some of these guys, John Booth, some of these guys are just so fun to talk to. But here's one thing that I tell people when they start talking about knowing their worth and charging this extra money and going higher with their prices. I don't care what you're charging people for this work. If you want to do our industry right, give them the value for whatever that number is. And if you do your job right, when you finish, they are smiling when they hand you the check.
Yes.
If they're paying, I don't care what the number is, if they're paying you and know that they got their money's worth, you have done our hardwood floor industry a great service. If you left somebody in your wake feeling like they got hustled or not the level or the care or the attention or whatever it was that they felt like they should have gotten, then you're giving the proverbial black eye to our industry. And I love this industry. And those are the guys that I say, come on, fellas, tighten up,
Well, I want to ask you guys some stuff and thank you. Jamie Lambert's back with us.
Quick suggestion.
Yep.
I would be willing to bet with the rambling that we busted through things here that we could get a few other people to say, hey, go down this rabbit hole or that rabbit hole deeper. Let's see what people have to say about it. And if anybody ever wants to reach out to me or Jamie and has questions about their specific problems, I don't like trying to get on Facebook and answer a bunch of stuff because you get the know-it-alls that want to shoot you down. If somebody is sincerely wanting some advice or help or whatever, we're always an open ear, So,
well, we need 60 seconds to wrap this up. I love you guys. You guys, it's been a great part of my career to meet people like you guys, and it's the second time we've had you in here. I'm going to just give you quick fire questions. I'm going to point at you. We're going to go. You're going to answer them as quick as you can. All right, Jamie, if you weren't in flooring, what would you be doing?
Supplements, vitamins.
Kent, if you weren't in flooring, what would you be doing?
I wanted to be a commercial spear fisherman now.
Yeah. All right.
A bit out.
All right. We've asked this before. You had time to think about this, Kent. Who plays you in this Lifetime movie channel about you, the floor guy?
Oh, okay. Let's do Clint Eastwood.
All right. Jamie, who plays you in the Lifetime movie about you?
Hugh Jackman.
I love it. All right. All right. Really quick. Jamie, you can only pick one. All you can do. This is it. You can only pick one. Install or sand and finish?
Sand and finish.
Kent?
I'm sand and finish.
Okay. Everybody catch up with you guys at Wood Floor Business Magazine, at All Things Wood Floor Podcast. And thank you, guys. You're the greatest. Please call me anytime. We love chatting.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Good to see you, Steve.
All right, brothers. Take care. Peace, homie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with the pros from Low Country Flooring. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review All Things Wood Floor.